Quick question. Have you ever tried to manifest something? Like, actually tried. You wrote it down, you said it out loud. Maybe you even stared at yourself in the mirror like, I am successful. Meanwhile, your bank account is like, are we? I tried it once. I bought one of those journals where you're supposed to write your goals like they've already happened. So I wrote, I am so grateful for my $10,000 in savings. I did not have $10,000 in savings, but I figured, hey, the universe loves confidence. 9 days later, I wrote, I am so grateful for my promotion. Then I went to work, and my boss yelled at me for a mistake I actually made. So apparently, the universe had read receipts turned off. But here's what got me thinking. Some people try manifestation, it doesn't work, and they stop. Other people don't even need to try. Their brain immediately goes, that's stupid. And that's actually fascinating, because that's not skepticism after something fails. It's skepticism that shows up before you've even tested it. So why does your brain sometimes refuse to believe something before you give it a chance? And why can two people look at the exact same result and one sees proof while the other sees complete nonsense? The answer has less to do with intelligence than you might think. Let's start with the believer, because you can't understand the skeptic without understanding what they're skeptical of. Somebody posts a video, manifested $500 out of nowhere, and immediately the comments split, right down the middle, every single time. Half the replies, this is so real. Other half, bro, that's your tax refund. Same 5 words, same evidence, two completely different brains, landing on completely opposite conclusions, both with total confidence. Here's the thing though, the believer isn't lying, they're not even being dramatic. Their brain is doing something real. It's called confirmation bias. Not a flaw exactly, more like a feature that misfires. Your brain is built to notice patterns. That's a genuinely good survival skill. Rustle in the bushes, assume predator, live to see tomorrow. But that same pattern hunting machine doesn't have an off switch for wishful thinking. You write, I am so grateful for my promotion 50 times. Then 3 weeks later, your boss says, good job in a meeting. Your brain lights up. Connection made, evidence logged. What your brain doesn't log? The other 400 times your boss said, good job, to somebody who never wrote anything in a journal, ever. That's called illusory correlation, seeing a connection between two things that aren't actually connected, just because your brain really wants the connection to be there. And here's the part that makes it so sticky. The believer isn't collecting evidence fairly, they're only counting the hits. Think about it like a scoreboard that only tracks one team. You manifest a parking spot, it's open. You write it down mentally as a win. You manifest 15 other parking spots that week that were absolutely packed, those don't get written down anywhere. Nobody's out here tallying manifestation 1, regular Tuesday 14. The wins get remembered. The misses get quietly deleted. This is why manifestation feels like it works, even when statistically, it's just doing what randomness already does on its own. And look, this isn't unique to manifestation. Your brain does this with horoscopes, with lucky socks, with every time I wash my car it rains. The human brain is an absolute machine for finding meaning in noise. It's actually one of the things we're best at as a species. The problem is, it doesn't come with a filter for meaning that's actually there versus meaning I really want it to be there. So that's the believer, genuinely not stupid, just running a very normal brain function at slightly too much volume. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because there's a second group of people, and they're not doing the math wrong. They're refusing to do the math at all. You start explaining a manifestation story to them, and you can watch it happen in real time. The eyebrow, the flat mouth, the that clearly means I have already decided this is nonsense. And here's the specific thing that makes this fascinating instead of just annoying. That reaction isn't happening after they've heard the evidence. It's happening before, which means something different is going on than simple disagreement. Disagreement requires actually weighing something and rejecting it. This is more like the weighing never starts. Psychologists have a term for part of this: ambiguity aversion. Some brains are specifically uncomfortable with unresolved uncertainty, so they resolve that discomfort fast by picking a side immediately and locking the door behind them. For a certain kind of person, I don't know if this works, let's stay curious about it, is an intolerable state to sit in. So their brain skips the sitting in it part entirely and jumps straight to a verdict. Not because they're smarter, because uncertainty itself feels bad to them, and certainty, even manufactured premature certainty, feels like relief. Here's the twist that usually doesn't make it into these conversations because skeptics don't love hearing it. The instinct to dismiss something instantly isn't neutral either. There's a term for it: disconfirmation bias, the evil twin of confirmation bias. Instead of hunting for evidence that supports what you already believe, you go hunting for evidence that supports what you already doubt. Same machine, different fuel. The skeptic sees the manifested parking spot and immediately reaches for the explanation that makes the magic go away. Coincidence, tax refund, confirmation bias, whatever the acceptable sounding term is. And sometimes they're completely right, but sometimes they're doing the exact same thing the believer's doing, reaching for the interpretation that keeps their existing worldview intact, stopping the second they find it, instead of actually checking if it's the correct one. The believer's brain says, I want this to be true, so I'll stop looking the moment I find something that fits. The skeptic's brain says, I want this to be false, so I'll stop looking the moment I find something that fits. Both of them stopped looking. Neither of them actually finished the investigation. Okay, real question now. Why does this split even happen? Why isn't everybody either fully gullible or fully skeptical? A lot of it traces back to something called locus of control. Simple idea, big effect. Some people's brains default to believing outcomes come from inside them, their effort, their choices, their actions. Other people's brains default to believing outcomes come from outside them, luck, timing, forces bigger than any one person. Neither one is objectively correct all the time. Life genuinely has both internal and external causes running simultaneously. But your default setting decides something specific. Which explanation feels emotionally satisfying? The moment something good happens to you? If your locus of control leans external, the universe aligned this for me feels intuitive. It matches how you already interpret your own life. If your locus of control leans internal, that same sentence feels almost insulting, like it's stealing credit from the actual work you did. That's not a difference in intelligence. It's a difference in which story your brain reaches for first. Here's where it gets genuinely useful instead of just being a which team are you on video. Buried inside manifestation, there's a real psychological mechanism working. Underneath the vision boards, the mirror affirmations, the journal entries the universe apparently never reads, it's called the Reticular Activating System, a real physical part of your brain. Its actual job is filtering. Your brain gets bombarded with more information every second than you could possibly consciously process, so it filters almost all of it out and only lets through what it's decided is currently relevant to you. That's why the second you're thinking about buying a specific car, you suddenly start seeing that exact car everywhere. It's not that more of them appeared on the road, it's that your brain finally started letting you notice them. Manifestation, stripped of the mysticism, is partly just this. You focus intensely on a goal. Your brain's filter shifts. You start noticing job openings you'd have scrolled past. You start noticing the opening in a conversation to mention what you're working on. You start noticing opportunities that were technically always there. That's not the universe rearranging itself for you. That's your own attention getting sharper. Which means the believer isn't entirely wrong that something changes when you focus hard on a goal. They're just wrong about the mechanism. It's not cosmic, it's neurological, and it was inside their own skull the entire time. And this is where the skeptic's instinct earns some real credit instead of just being the fun killer in every group chat. Because here's the actual risk with manifestation, and it's not that it's fake, it's that belief in it can quietly replace the action that was supposed to come with it. There's research on this, mental contrasting, and it shows something a little uncomfortable. Vividly imagining a positive future outcome, really sitting in it, feeling it as if it's already happened, That can trick your brain to experiencing a small hit of satisfaction right now, which sounds harmless, except that satisfaction can quietly lower your motivation to actually go do the thing. Your brain, in a weird way, treats the daydream like a withdrawal from a bank account you haven't actually earned yet. So the person journaling, "I'm so grateful for my promotion" every morning, they might be doing something that feels productive, while it's actually functioning like a pressure release valve, letting off just enough ambition steam that the real application never gets submitted. The skeptic's gut instinct, sitting around thinking about it, isn't the same as doing it, isn't just crankiness. It's backed by actual behavioral research. So here's where we land. The believer's brain is running a pattern detection system turned up too high, catching connections that aren't really there. But occasionally, accidentally, catching real ones too. The sharpened attention, the noticed opportunities, the real psychological mechanism hiding under the mystical language. The skeptic's brain is running a doubt detection system turned up just as high, correctly catching a lot of nonsense, but occasionally also shutting the door on a real, useful behavioral insight before it even gets a chance to be examined. Neither one of them is the smart one and the other the gullible one. They're both running valid mental tools, just aimed with wildly different defaults. And maybe the actual upgrade for either side isn't picking a team harder, it's borrowing the other team's setting, occasionally. The believer could use a little more disconfirmation bias, actually checking the misses, not just celebrating the hits. The skeptic could use a little more curiosity before the door slams shut, because sometimes there's a real mechanism hiding inside the nonsense, and slamming the door too fast means you never find it. So, next time somebody tells you they manifested something and you feel that instant reaction, either the warm, "Yes, I get it," or the flat, "Oh, come on," pause for one extra second before you commit to it. Not because you're wrong, because that half-second gap is literally the only place either brain, yours or theirs, actually gets to think instead of just react. And if you want to keep taking apart the psychology hiding inside the most ordinary looking parts of our lives, that's exactly what we do here. See you in the next one.